Well, good evening, Mark. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I'd like to ask you the first question is, could you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your background and what led you to focus on stress management in your work?
Okay, certainly, yeah. As you say, my name's Mark Peters. I'm in Birmingham. I teach NLP and hypnosis and see clients. But my background's in engineering, and so for years I climbed the corporate ladder, digital operations director, and noticed so much stresses in the workplace, including myself, and it became more and more fascinated on how that was working. And what really tipped me was when I had an issue myself, when I had a really stressful event. I was working away in London, and I had a phone call. And this is kind of before smartphones, so you couldn't do what we couldn't do WhatsApp, you couldn't do all those kind of things that people take for granted now. Somebody did something in Birmingham while I was away, and I could do nothing about it because I couldn't get back or speak to anybody. And I got so stressed and so worked up and even anxious to a degree that I got really ill. And I ended up being off work, sick with stress for 2 weeks. And I thought, I'm never going to allow that to happen to me again. Um, and what led me to think I could have an impact was I remember reading a quote. It gets re-quoted often, but it's originally from Marcus Aurelius, and he said it's not the event that is stressful; it's your response to that event. And that made me realize, well, yes, stress wasn't happening to me. I was happening, and I was responding in a way that my body responded to in a fight or flight state, but I could actually impact on that. And that's what led me to become more fascinated in, yeah, how stress affects people and how I can help myself and other people.
And how would you say you work with people relating to the stress? What is your field?
Well, I help them through, I suppose, really therapy. Have talking therapies with an assumption there's something wrong with you want fixing, or coaching where you're not sure where you want to go. You need someone to help you on the journey, and they're not completely exclusively separate, and they do cross over. And what I was noticing, more and more people were what they tend to use in therapeutic terms with magical thinking. So thinking things and then doubling them up and doubling them up. Now, I quite like magic. I do magic tricks. I find them fascinating. But people magical thinking is never fun stuff. So what they do is they keep doubling up and doubling up problems. And because our brains can't tell the difference between reality and synthetic, so it doesn't know. If you imagine it, it believes it's real. People will imagine all kinds of terrible stories and thoughts and play a movie in their mind, and their body would respond as though that movie is real, and then they would go into fight or flight. But helping somebody realize that it's not them, it's a process that's happening and can be affected. And that became fascinating because look, I'm a human engineer. How do things work? Engineers are all the same. Engineers want to know what's it for, how does it work, and can I improve on it? All engineers are the same. And so I thought, well, how does that work? What's it for? How can I impact it? How can I improve on it? How can I turn it on, turn it off? What can I do with it? And that's where NLP, which is a study of a study of the structure of subjective experience, which is whatever you're doing really well, but how are you doing it? So engineers just love to know that stuff. And that's what fascinates me.
That's fantastic.
So,
In your own experience, what are some of the most common sources of stress people face today? And how can recognizing these sources help in managing stress effectively?
Sure. Because stress is a subjective thing and stress is your response to the thing, not the thing itself. It's people's beliefs, so social media, what they think is happening. And if we're being fed a constant negative story, we believe it to become true, and then our brain responds as though it's true. So social media can be a stressor. Not feeling that you're effective at work can be a stressor. Not feeling you're good in your relationship can be a stressor. When you think you're underperforming against a measure that realistically you've set, those are all stressors. And then when people become overstressed, they get overstretched and go into fight, flight, or freeze. and it's realizing how that works and how that can be impacted.
So what are some of the practical techniques or strategies you would recommend for managing stress on a day-to-day basis? And how do these approaches vary depending on the individual lifestyle or personality?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, the main things that I found is that people don't do, and what I mean don't do regularly and often as a habit, because they make another habit, a habit called stress and worrying. What they don't do as a useful, helpful habit is relaxation or mindfulness or reset. Now, it is an old joke from the 80s and 90s, even to the 2000s about your computer. And people say, my computer's not working. And they would say, if you try turning off and on again, it's just a well-known thing that people always said in IT. But we forget brains overload too. They can't multitask, but they do multi-think. And so they start overloading with these extraneous thoughts and they're magically thinking and doubling everything up. But if we don't do a reset or a reboot or a relaxation, however you want to term it, then it overloads. So my key message for people and for myself too is every 2 hours, just relax for 30 seconds. And you can call it grounding. So you can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Notice the 5 things around you, 4 things you can see, hear, smell, taste. You can use your senses to ground yourself. My preferred method is notice the world around you, notice yourself, notice your breathing. Just allow yourself to be present for 30 seconds to a minute, and that's enough to reset. And then the reset allows people to be objective. And stress comes from overloading and overthinking. But if people stop overloading and stop overthinking, stress goes away. We all know there are situations when we're trying to do something or be somewhere or help someone, and we overthink it and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and we can't solve it. Yet when you stop for a moment, get a cup of tea, interrupt the pattern of your thought, do something different. When you come back to it, it seems so much easier. And so grounding yourself, simple relaxation technique, whatever you do to interrupt that pattern of thought, allows your brain to reset. And it doesn't matter what personality people have got, they find their reset that best suits them. Now, if they are quite a going gregarious kind of person, maybe they want to reset by doing a bit of juggling. Or maybe they want to reset by going for a run or a bike ride. Or maybe they want to reset by stopping, having a coffee and watching TV for a bit. It doesn't matter what they do, the ability to interrupt that pattern so it doesn't keep doubling up allows people to be much more objective and therefore relaxed. And when you're objective and relaxed, you step out of the emotional state of it and can be more objective.
Wow, this is quite interesting. And the thing is, because people don't know, they don't know how to use these techniques. Very interesting.
Yeah.
How do you say unmanaged stress affect our physical and mental well-being? And if you can share with us any personal professional experience where effective stress management made a significant difference on one of your clients or on yourself.
Okay. Well, there's a tool you maybe have used it yourself or drawn it. It's called a bell curve, and so you have the 2 axes, time and intensity, and then a curve that goes up, over and down like a bell shape. And it gets used in lots of industries, and I remember used to use it in engineering, and we call it a standard deviation curve. But in stress, if you think is this bell curve or this mountain, it goes up to a peak, across and over and down the other side. People think that you don't want stress at all. So I stopped using the word stress and start replacing it with the word stretch. And so what we need to do is we all need stretch, which technically is called eustress. So we all need stretch. And so stretch is what challenges us to move us forwards. Stretch is what challenges us in our business, in our life. It's what fascinates us. When I go for a bike ride, I stretch myself by adding a little bit more or going a different route. that's stretch, that's normal stress. So I call it stretch. And when you reach the peak of your stretch, that's when you're developing and stretching your capacity and your capability. When it becomes stressful is when people overstretch, and they go overstressed and overstretch, and then they get into distress, and then that's overloading. So helping people understand that curve, almost developing a personal barometer, a scale which says, this is when I'm being stretched, and this is when I'm learning and enjoying and developing. This is when I feel I'm at my full capacity of stretch. This is when I'm overstretched. And helping people calibrate that helps them notice much sooner when that's happening. Now, I know it's a kind of old corny story about learning to boiling a frog. I remember somebody telling me when I was doing my MBA, they said, if you got a lovely bowl of water and it's just comfortable, and put a stone, you put a frog in, and the temperature was just right, the frog would be comfortable. If you started warming the water up, the frog would keep adjusting to the temperature until eventually it was too hot and boiled to death. But if you dropped it in a boiling water, it would jump straight out. That's kind of how stress works. We don't notice it building up until we're overloaded. Yet if you develop your own barometer for your stretch levels or your stress levels, you'll notice when you're feeling stretched. You'll overstretched. You'll notice and become more aware before you hit the peak, when it's time to rest, time to break, time to step away, and then you'll start developing strategies that prevent that stretch and overstretch working. For example, it's been on the news talking about people having the right to turn their phones off and emails off at night, so they're not working outside of working hours, because social media and emails and phones are 24 hours a day. People have started doing work outside of the working hours and then getting overstretched and overstressed. And so they've been setting up legally to say that you have the right to say, no, I finish at 5 or whatever time you finish, my phone goes off, my emails go off. And realizing that developing those strategies and those agreements and those boundaries, because that's the other issue, isn't it? People don't set boundaries. And because remember, by nature, humans stretch boundaries all the time. We push limits all the time. If you
Yes.
don't set boundaries and understand what boundaries are, then you never know until it's too late. So developing a calibration so you know what your levels are moving, being clear about your boundaries in all the contexts that previously have felt stressful to you. That's what makes a big difference.
Excellent.
Excellent, yeah. So for our listeners who might be struggling with stress right now, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice to help them regain balance and improve their stress management practices?
Set clear boundaries. Practice relaxation regular and often. Now remember, I started calling it a mindful moment because it just takes moments, like 30 seconds to a minute.
Yeah.
But don't think of it as a repair tool. Don't do it when you're broken. Do it as a preventative tool. So do it every 2 hours for 30 seconds as a preventative tool rather than a repair tool. So that's set boundaries, practice relaxation regular and often, and realize it's your response to the thing that is stressful, not the thing itself. Those are my 3 key things.
Thank you very much. And you've also written a book, haven't you? Would you like to promote that to our people? Because that could be quite useful to them as well.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right.
Thank you. Yeah, I never planned to do hypnotherapy or be a coach or NLP trainer or anything like that. I'm always curious. That's what engineers are like. And so I wrote a book, and I'm just writing volume 2 actually at the moment. And the book's called The Accidental Hypnotist. Because I never planned to be a hypnotherapist or hypnotist, I just became fascinated on how the brain does what it does, and how people are forever hypnotizing themselves into terrible fears and worries. And so I called it The Accidental Hypnotist, because I accidentally became that. And the book talks about approaches, my journey, approaches to hypnosis, different techniques you can use to develop your skills yourself. Yeah. Well, one thing I have become fascinated by is the NHS in recent years have come up with this new technique that they call imaginary rehearsal therapy. And mostly it's because they just don't want to say hypnosis. Imaginary rehearsal therapy is a CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, approach to hypnosis. And it says this thing that you're worrying about, this trauma, this anxiety, this stress, this nightmare, we want you to relax. The movie you've been playing in your mind that is stressing you or worrying you, we want you to play the movie, but adjust the movie. And each time you make those adjustments, so the movie is easier and better for you, so it's less stressful and more fascinating. Because the more you use your imagination and more you're in control of your imagination, the more you realize your imagination can give you the things you want rather than the things that you don't want, because whatever you imagine, it will give you. So imagination rehearsal therapy, I thought it was quite a good description. If people are imagining things overloading, they become stressed. If they imagine that there's more space and time and they've got relaxed and more coping strategies in place and more methods like a project plan or whatever they want to call it, a goal, then imagination supports them. So yeah, again, it's just an example of being an accidental hypnotist, realizing that your brain is yours and you're in charge. Thank you.
Okay. And if people wanted to get that book, can they get it off Amazon?
Yes, they can buy it on Amazon. Just type in accidental hypnotist or Mark Peters, or they can go onto my website, balancedapproach.co.uk, and email me. And then certainly I'll answer any questions, sell them a copy of my book, book them for an appointment, whatever they want.
That's fantastic. We're gonna leave some links on the post so people can reach out if they want to make an appointment with you or if they want to read your book.
Fantastic.
So,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today. And we're gonna continue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.